Hi, Angelina. Welcome to the Wins podcast.
Thank you, Amy. Nice to be here.
I have been wanting to hear your story for a really long time. As formerly a woman in sports myself, and then an entrepreneur living on the outskirts of the sports business, you have been one of the women that has been living in that world for a long time and really owning it. Right. And so, as you know, women are few and far between in the business, and on the founder side, even fewer and further between. So I really wanted to chat with you today about your story of getting into what you've been doing here with Sportdigita, and just learn more about the product and the story behind it. So thank you so much for making the time for me today.
Of course, of course.
All right. So I'm going to start with your fun fact,
Okay.
which is that you are bilingual.
I am. I
Can
am.
you, yeah, tell me about that.
So my mother is from Mexico City, so I grew up with her speaking Spanish. I actually learned Spanish before English, which was great. And so we were always required to speak Spanish in the home. And now with my three kids, same thing. I've got three kids, all in their early 20s, and they're all bilingual too. So it's been a great gift that was handed down to me, to my kids, I guess.
Yeah, it is a great gift. It's something that when I was growing up, I was like, one day my kids are going to be bilingual, and that didn't happen.
Yeah.
That didn't happen.
They
Uh,
love it because they get to test out of their classes a little bit sooner if they're fluent. So they're a little happy about it too.
right. I'm sure their friends, think
Yes.
that's, you know. Anyway, yeah, that's really interesting, and I'm sure valuable in the business world for you, being able to speak two languages.
It has been. I mean, especially with sports, there's so many teams that are really trying to do more things with Mexico, the NBA, the NHL, and things like that. So I've been part of some really cool conversations where I've been able to really understand the culture of Mexico and what they're trying to do in sports and vice versa. So it's been good.
That's amazing. All right. So let's jump into your story. You are the CEO and founder of Sportsdigita, and
Yes.
the lead product is DigiDeck.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Um, and that's sometimes hard for people because when I started DigiDeck was not yet a product. We were an agency. And so the DigiDeck has evolved over 10 years. And so it's almost like now I have two brands. I've got Sportsdigita and I've got DigiDeck. And we're at a crossroads as to, do we switch our name? Do we keep it? So it's really been a really cool evolution of our product that has almost superseded our name.
Yeah. Are you leaning one way or the other, do you think?
You know, we have had so much growth outside of sports that it's difficult to call on, let's say, United Healthcare, um, who do use our product. We've got really great names outside of sports, but it took a little bit more education to tell them that we weren't just sports, that DigiDeck, the product, can be for anything. So just think PowerPoint, you could use that for anything for us as well. So it depends. For us, 24 is really about our focus. And if we're going to continue to work in sports with a bit of B2B, or if we're going to really go full bore ahead into the B2B. So we're actually going through that decision making right now.
Yeah, I am sure it's hard. I get it.
Yeah.
This is a way smaller scale, but going through the similar decision of my own, I know my network. I came from the sports business. I'm serving women in sports. Maybe you've experienced it. I've had several people over the years say to me, you need to expand.
Yeah.
Sports is too small.
Right.
And I'm like, well, that's the point though, right? Because I'm serving women in sports. And, fast forward 5 years, I finally accepted the advice.
Yeah.
It sort of
It's
happened organically too. It was like, well, I started having people come to me and say, hey, do you work with these women too? And I was like, well, I don't want to say no to you, right?
right. Right.
And then the sports branding needs to drop off. But I held on to it for a really long time. I was like, I don't want to let this go. I don't want to, but
I
yeah.
know. It's exactly what I'm going through too, because we just have so much equity in our Sportsdigita name. So it's really hard for me. And that really is where my passion is. That's why I started this company. And organically, grown out of sports. So I don't want to ignore that. But really my passion is that sports side. And sports, is it really that small? I mean, I keep trying to, like, I talk to investors and things like that, and they're like, well, there's so much more market outside of sports. I'm like, I don't think you understand. Sports has a TAM that it includes so much. It's the minor leagues, it's the professional leagues, it is the peripheral sports, people that work in the arenas, it's the food and beverage, it's the tourism, it is, motorsports. So we don't just work with the 5 leagues, we're working with a huge ecosystem of sports. So
Yes.
I think it's bigger, and I like the space.
Yes, I love the space. You're right. It's not just the pros. People forget it's not
Right,
just the pros. There's a long
right,
tail. There's a lot of people involved, from top
right.
to bottom. Okay, so I'm anxious to then hear what you guys decide. I'm sure it's an exciting process to be going through for you.
It is. It's a good problem to have.
Yeah, right. So before you became an entrepreneur, in my notes, I have you were the VP of Corporate Communications for the Tampa Bay Lightning, which is an NHL team for anyone who doesn't know that.
Yes.
And my question for you is, and I'll lead in with saying, sometimes an entrepreneur is an entrepreneur is an entrepreneur. Like it was always part of the plan. For you, did you always know that you would become a business owner? Was it part of your plan or did it happen organically?
I think that because of my personality, I knew that I didn't want to work for somebody else. So I felt that this was a good fit for me. But I think since I've been a little girl and how I thought about things and wanted to be involved in things that wasn't the typical kind of jobs, it was like super funny things. Like I would have a store, I would do a lemonade stand, I would do, a dog walking service for the dogs, just stuff like that. Was just not, I wasn't looking to just go get a job somewhere. I just wanted to figure out how I can make my own money. So I think that it started at a young age. I have a dad who was an entrepreneur as well. And so I spent a lot of time with my dad, and he was my example for that. So I think it's just really, I think being an entrepreneur is in your DNA, honestly. I have a son right now who's starting a company out. He goes to University of Wisconsin-Madison, same thing. He's like, I don't want to work for someone. I want to have my own company. I feel like he's following right in my footsteps. I've got another son who works for me, and he's going to go that path, So it's just, whether it's in your DNA or not, I think that's where I feel it's always been for me.
Yeah, I have a dad that was an entrepreneur and a grandfather that was an entrepreneur. I look
Oh,
back on
really?
that and I do. I think I looked at them and I thought I could do it. I know I
Yeah,
can do it. I don't know what
right.
it's going to be. I
Yeah,
don't know what I'm going to sell,
right. I know.
but I'm going to do it. Yeah.
Yes. And the idea is the hardest part. Everyone, it's funny. I refer back to Nick, my son. He'll send me texts all the time. He's like, I can't believe like how hard this is, or like how did you do this and how'd you do that? I'm like, Nick, you have no idea what's ahead of you. This entrepreneur road is up and down, bumpy, rocky, whatever. And so it's funny, he's starting to see now how it is really difficult to be, but it's possible, obviously.
It's definitely a lifestyle.
Yes.
It is really embracing the unknown a lot. And
Yes.
also, just going with it sometimes,
Yep.
and I've really, I love it. I mean, I
I do
think
too.
when you feel like, I think when people gain energy from this sense of I have control over the situation versus if I work for someone else, I absolutely would not have. I think there's a lot of power that comes from that. It's really exciting to hear that you have sons that might, go in the same direction.
Yeah, for sure. At least one.
At least one. Yep.
Yeah, at least one.
So when you were at the Lightning, my second question is, what pushed you over the proverbial cliff? Okay, so you were working for a team, which basically is a small, business or corporation. When did you decide to build your company? And kind of what was the moment that pushed you off?
Well, it's not a typical one, but some people know and some people don't know is that I got my break in sports through my husband. My husband was the general manager down in Tampa, working for the Lightning. My husband was a professional hockey player, was an agent, worked at Octagon, and then became GM. So when he became the GM, we were originally from Minneapolis. We still are. That's where Sportsdigita is based, but we moved our family down to Tampa. And that was really at the point where my kids were getting older and I wanted to get back into the workforce. So we had really young, awesome owners at the Lightning, and I became close with them and started sharing my thoughts about wanting to get back into working. Honestly, I took about almost 10 years off between my financial career and the sports career. But he was great, and he knew my background, and he offered me the opportunity to run their corporate communications. So that's how I got my break. Was really, my husband's name is Brian. Oren Koulis is the owner. Him and his wife, I should say specifically his wife, Shireen, was really instrumental in helping me get that job. She's also an entrepreneur and works really hard. So we really bonded over that. So she was my advocate there. So what pushed me over the edge was when Oren was no longer going to own the team and we got new owners. My husband is no longer the GM. So here I am, 2.5 years into it, love my job, love everything I'm doing at the Lightning. And now my husband has been let go because new owners want their own coaches and their own GMs. So that's how I got pushed over the cliff. So I had to, I couldn't stay. As much as I loved it, like, what was I going to do? Like, not move back with my husband. So resigned. The owner, the new kind of consultant was like, you do such a good job here. You should do this for other teams. And I'm like, God, yeah, maybe, I don't know. That's kind of a big thing. But then I started thinking, like, whatever I did for the Lightning, which was basically everything with that logo on it, I started to think, yeah, I can do this. So they were great. The Lightning treated me great. I came back to Minneapolis, and about a month later, I started Sportsdigita, but I started it as an agency. So that's a huge, like a point for, people are always like, oh, you're a marketing firm. I'm like, we are not a marketing firm. We are a tech company. There is a huge difference in that. So that was what pushed it, just new ownership at the Lightning. And I was forced to kind of go out on my own.
Yeah, that happens all the time.
For sure. For sure.
I'm a little mad at myself. I didn't make the connection with the last name. I mean, I worked at the NHL for a while, but we also watch hockey. Like, my husband, religiously hockey fan.
Oh yeah. No, Brian was on the NHL Network. He was on there.
Yeah.
He was
Now I'm like, ding, ding, ding.
Yeah. Like, yeah, 8 years. So he's pretty, he works with me here a lot, but he's very involved.
Yeah. And so, this comes up. I have a friend / client / industry connection with someone who was in recruiting for Turnkey. You probably remember Turnkey.
Love Turnkey. I think they do a great job.
Organizational shifts in leadership and what happens. And she's like super, super knowledgeable on that topic. But yeah, okay. So that makes sense. And then, so you move back to Minneapolis, you create the agency.
I do.
Which is really a product business at the end of the day. Because you're selling, at least from my vantage point and from what I've taken from your background, you're selling something into multiple teams that they can then use.
Yes. So it's the DigiDeck. So how that evolved was, I came back to Minneapolis and I started to work with the Twins, and they were one of my first clients. It was like the Twins, the Red Wings, and the Minnesota Lynx kind of were my first people that gave me a chance. And the Twins, I had done a project for them that really showcased sponsorship opportunities at Target Field through a really cool interactive presentation, and where you could do a hotspot and you could download, I mean, basic stuff, but like just like downloading the logo and having it show up in the outfield and all that. And so it was with that little project that I just started using that when I was talking to other teams, and then other teams were like, hey, we need this, because everyone was doing PowerPoint. And so that's really how I built that product out, was just through getting really lucky with the Minnesota Twins and using that as kind of my prototype for everybody else. So before that, I was just doing kind of like little one-off microsites, things like that. But with that, the success of that deck, then I called it a DigiDeck because it was digital. And then we just started to, because teams continue to want that, we productized it. And the rest is history now. We've fully built that in-house. We don't go overseas. We've built that. We've got a great dev team here, and we just continue to evolve it. It's just the best way I could describe it is PowerPoint on steroids. And I know that that's just it's not the greatest connotation, but it really is. It's just like, there's so many softwares out there that people are always confused. Like, what do you guys do? Is it an app? Is it this? Is it that? So I just figured if I'm at a cocktail party and I got 1 second to tell people, they was like, now tell me what you do. I'm like, just think, you know what PowerPoint is? Yes. Okay. We are that, but on steroids. We're helping you tell your story. It's a great presentation tool. It's a sales tool. They're like, oh, okay, I get it. So the minute that they can put you into a box, understanding in that tech ecosystem, it helps me. So it's kind of trite like that, but that's the best way to do it. But if I were to be speaking to like, let's say like, Kaiser Permanente is one of our clients. And it's a little bit more of a formal conversation. It's a cloud-based presentation builder with analytics, an open API, CRM integration. So it's a much bigger thing than what I said PowerPoint, but I'm trying to just kind of keep in a box.
Yes. And I want to take a second to say, your transition from VP of comms to agency owner doing, like you said, one-off projects, figuring it out on the fly.
Yeah.
What is this going to become, to kind of lassoing the moment where you realized, okay, this is what it needs to become. That's not hard. That's not easy to do.
No.
I want to point out it's not easy to do because that's where the entrepreneurial mindset comes in, is
Right.
I'm gonna figure this out and I'm going to try it and I'm going to see what happens and I'm going to go, right? And I'm not going to be afraid. So that's one thing I want to point out. But the other thing I want to ask you is, part of the entrepreneurial way of life is seeing the gaps and taking action. And I want to hear a little bit more from you around why you knew that the DigiDeck was going to be the lead product, and what the gap was in the industry, right? What the problem was that it solved, that it became as successful as it has.
So it helped the industry that I was in. As you know, sports is a very dynamic, sexy industry. And the gap to me was that there was not a product out there other than PowerPoint that was able to showcase game day, entertainment, whatever entailed around that sphere of sports. And so I just knew from talking to enough teams, and teams, people think that sports is really progressive on the tech side, and it's actually the opposite. There are some teams that are super tech savvy, but mostly are still, like, when we still go out and pitch, we are still competing against PowerPoint, which is crazy to me. But so the gap to me was there was nothing out there that was able to be dynamic and interactive presentation platform where you could do that. And so understanding how many teams and leagues, I mean, we just signed the NFL, same thing. The NFL, as progressive and as amazing that it is, when we went in there, they're still using PowerPoint. We just transitioned, the league and NFL media over to our product. I think that the gap continues. The gap is even bigger over in Europe. They're still a bit behind the US, but it's been nice to see the evolution of this digital footprint that has been happening in sports over the last 3 or 4 years. So I just think just filling that gap of being able to tell your story, the brand, all that good stuff was where I saw a huge opportunity for us. I was searching, Googling, like, what's a great, cool presentation platform that, like, or sales or anything. It was just like, there was just nobody doing it. And I couldn't believe it. So now the space has gotten pretty crowded, not in sports, but outside of sports, just because content creation is just so key now. So there's definitely a lot more players in the space. that do bits and pieces of what we do, but not everything married together, how we've done it. So we have, our platform, there's a lot of creative tools out there, but what we've done and what our differentiator is that we are a creative tool, but we are a sales tool, and we put them both together. So at an organization or a team or whatever, we're dealing with their marketing team and their sales team, which is really cool.
Yeah. And it leads me to my next question. Before I ask that question though, what's amazing about this, and you articulated it, it's hard to believe that PowerPoint was the only option, right? And I'm preaching to the choir. It is so clunky,
Yeah.
so frustrating.
You send it out. You don't know if anyone's opened it. You don't have it's not integrated with your CRM. No analytics. I mean, it's all about data these days too.
Right.
And there's no data that you can get off of PowerPoint.
And in sports, what people who don't work in the business may not know is that sales is the lifeblood of this industry. And so by making it a sales tool with creative, like a creative tool to support sales is the genius, because you could have just created a tool to create things, or you could have just said, look, I'm going to spend the next 15 years creating sales presentations for teams in PowerPoint or whatever else comes out. But instead, you're like, no, I'm going to build the thing. I'm going to be the disruptor. I'm going to be the challenger, and I'm going to fill this gap. And this is why you're still in this business today, because you created something that actually had legs and that was good enough and dynamic enough that teams, they like to play copycat, and the pros, they all jumped on board. But yeah, so let's talk for a second about sales in sports and why this product has been transformational for teams.
So I would say that just giving the sales people the opportunity to create a deck on their own without going to the creative side or the marketing side is a game changer. So for instance, I can say, like, let me think about a client. So let's say American Airlines Center. They've got a creative team and they got a sales team. I have now enabled their sellers to go in and create a DigiDeck, which is already 90% done because we've already created it. All they're doing is customizing it. So now instead of getting 1 or 2 presentations out a week, now they're getting like 10 to 12 out a week, and not having to go over and utilize the marketing and the creative side. I mean, that's the biggest frustration that we hear with talking to teams. It's like, and you would think the biggest brands, because we do work with the biggest brands in sports, you would think that they have this machine of creative, this machine of marketing people. And you know what? They run those really, really lean because teams are smart and they know that the revenue side is where they need to build. And so it's always very minimal on that other side. And so the fact that I have enabled their sellers to go out and generate revenue instead of spending countless hours putting together a deck, it has been transformational. And that to me is why we are dominating the space, because we are helping teams generate revenue.
You're also probably helping them save money.
Yes. Yes.
So
That little thing.
yeah,
Little thing.
so I wrote down saves money and it makes money. It's the double whammy, because if what you just said, I mean, first of all, genius. Okay, let's give the individual sellers the tools to do it themselves. That's brilliant. Let's take some of the weight off of the marketing team, which probably is one person or maybe 2 people at every single team. And that's what people don't know. Like they think, oh, they've got this huge amount of, staff behind the scenes at this team because this team is like, my life. And I watch the, Philadelphia Flyers or the Tampa Bay Lightning, and they've got it all. They've got it all. No, they don't. They run it on a shoestring. If they're losing, they have even fewer people. So the genius here is you can walk in and you can say, look, this is going to make you more money, but immediately save you time and money because each of your sales reps can do it on their own. That's genius.
And really integrating with their CRM systems, which that's another thing. Like teams are just in the last 3 years starting to do their CRM systems. It's amazing to me when we are talking to organizations that are just still not doing that. But giving them that access to has been really, really time saving for them too.
Yeah.
That whole digital footprint at a team is so critical. That whole, the tech space, what they have. And there was like a huge surge towards these kind of platforms during COVID. And a lot of teams bought a lot of these softwares, but they don't know how to connect them all. So we've been fortunate to understand that and come in and connect it for them. So if they're spending money on a CRM and a data warehouse and some type of a Marketo or some type of a top of the funnel kind of windfall into that, the DigiDeck is kind of grouping that all together. So we're not just like selling them a product.
No, I love it.
Yeah.
It's truly dynamic, in that it hooks into their other systems, which they rely on every single day. I think enabling the sellers is like, if I'm sitting there and I'm listening to your pitch, I'm like, the lights are all going off. So I can now see how this worked. The other thing is the timing. You know, your strike happened at the right time.
Right.
And that's amazing. And I'm super excited to hear that, you know, how it happened, how it's evolving, you know, what the pitch is.
Yeah, COVID was like the best thing that happened to us, honestly, because people couldn't get on airplanes and it really increased the importance of having that interaction. Our platform, we built our own Zoom in it. So instead of getting on an airplane during COVID, you could literally pitch off of our deck and you could just press a button and all of a sudden you're in it, like just like how you and I are Zooming right now, it just comes right out of the DigiDeck. So everyone was like, oh my God, what's going to happen now that COVID? I'm like, are you kidding? COVID was like the best thing that ever happened. Now, at first, when COVID happened, we were freaking out. We like redid all of our budgets. We're like, oh my God, we are so screwed.
Well, yeah, because sports stopped.
Sports stopped.
Yeah.
But guess what? They still needed to sell.
Mhm.
There was still things that needed to happen. They still wanted to keep contact with their season ticket holders and their sponsors. Our vehicle let them do that. But it was really scary at first. But then all of a sudden we're like, wait a minute. Like this is actually good for us. So it was a fun, not COVID wasn't fun, but it was
I understand.
something that we didn't expect.
So what kind of team do you have? Because like the way that you're talking about how you can quickly move and pivot and evolve is impressive. Do you have a team that is behind the scenes with the product, kind of evolving it constantly?
Constantly. We are super agile, but constantly. And so really, as you know, the DigiDeck was born out of sports, but the DigiDeck where it is today is literally a culmination of us having so many partners in each space and everything that they have asked for that we thought made sense is now part of this product. So when we were just out at Lambeau Field last week talking to them, and just as far as like understanding what they were looking for, but we're just it's just crazy to me, like all the things that happened. I forgot what I was
Oh
saying.
no, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. We can go on. Okay. So I want to talk to you about a couple things related to the words that come up a lot in my interviews with women in business. So confidence, reputation, finding your niche, right? So there's a lot of stuff that we can talk about. I'm going to pick a couple things because I want to move through this and make sure that I get all the good things in during the time that we have. When you were first going out to pitch this, you mentioned the Minnesota Twins being one of your first clients. Can we talk about the fact that even today, and you've been in business since, what is it, 2011,
10, 11, yeah.
over 10 years. So even now, the statistics will say that less than 20% of the C-suite in the sports business is women. And so, correct me if I'm wrong. The reality of the situation is that you're going into teams and you're one of the only women in the room and you're pitching this business. And I want to hear about that, right? Selling it for the first time, you know, finding the courage and the confidence to deliver the pitch, to land the sale, you know, at the very beginning. What was that like for you?
Working for a team was what gave me the confidence. I understood how a team worked. So going into the rooms the first time was not as scary because I had that background. I knew what was going on behind the scenes. But I just think as far as having the confidence, I enjoy to be the only woman in the room because there is not that many of us. I have a woman that actually runs my sports side of the business as well. So it's typically two of us. And everyone is always looking for me to give some dirt on how hard it is and how it's so unfair and all that. And I don't subscribe to that. I'm confident. Christy's confident. We know our stuff. We are, I'm a tech founder. I'm a sports business owner. And so just with that, that gives me the confidence. I'm constantly talking to men about my business and the amount of teams and how we've dominated this space. And it's just the people that come on to partner with us always gives me even more confidence. But I just think if you don't have the confidence, then it's obviously not going to work. The rooms can be intimidating because it is all men. I remember like a Chicago Bears, that was a big one of our first ones, and that was all men. Once they figure out, what you're talking about though, then, they understand that we're going to be able to help them generate revenue because that's what all their jobs are. It really does change the chemistry in the room. But if I go in not confident, it's not going to work.
Right. And so you have that, and you did mention like you had experience doing this. It's not like you came out of another industry and you tried to break into sports, which a lot of people do. And ultimately, they don't understand what's going on behind the scenes. Like they think, oh, this is a big operation. They have money. No, they don't.
Yeah.
They want you to pay them half the time to like be part of their ecosystem. And so, but here with what you're doing is again, I'm repeating myself, but we're going to make you more money.
Yep.
Revenue is everything. And we're going to save your people time. We're going to put the tools in their hands. So yeah, the concept makes sense. It's genius. Let's talk.
I also came from the financial world too. And that was a bunch of what, I always say, like, I don't know if you've ever heard of my other podcasts, but I always say like my life journey has been like a hockey game. Like my first years were my Wall Street years. My second years were my NHL years, or I should say first period Wall Street years, second period NHL years, third period was my entrepreneur years. My Wall Street years are what gave me my confidence in my NHL, my sports years for sure. I worked for my father, a bunch of Wall Street guys. They were owned out of London. And it was a very formal, very intimidating crew. And that's where I interned. That's where I went right after college. I worked there probably about 8 years. And that's really where I got my confidence. I would never be able to go into sports if I hadn't done that. And had such a father who put me kind of in the fire all the time with all these Wall Street guys and just giving me that confidence.
That's amazing. So your confidence was being cultivated for years and years and years. And it's true. I mean, I think when you talk about it, thinking about you entering sports with that base of experience must have been extremely valuable. And then you turn around a few years later, you're walking into these boardrooms and pitching this, tech company and product, and look at you now. I mean, wow.
Right.
Let's talk about reputation. Okay, because it's one thing that you broke in, and it's another thing that you're still dominating in that business. And so I wanted to hear more about how you have maintained your reputation as a company, but also as a CEO, because I think sometimes it's one and the same. What are your sort of pillars, and, do you, if you even have any pillars, and how you present the business and how you deliver your service?
So I think that last word that you used is so key. So for me, it's all about the service and what we do for our partners. It is so critical to me. And it's a bit different than other software companies. We service the hell out of our clients from start to finish. We're on airplanes if things aren't right. We are always, if there's something extra, or, I always say like if they, for instance, like Dallas Mavericks, I remember Mark Cuban, they were going up to pitch in New York and they needed something extra and special. And it's like, the answer is yes. I treat our partners how I want to be treated. And I have instilled that service mentality throughout this entire organization. And this entire organization absolutely has embraced that. So whether it's my CSM team, whether it's the dev team, the solutions team, the sales team, everyone has that same mentality. I am not a sell it and move on kind of girl. Like, for instance, we're going to New York next week, and we were in New York maybe, I don't know, 4 months ago. Brooklyn Sports and Entertainment came on, and a really great partnership, a great deal. And we were out there, promised a ton of things, and we have launched them now. And so now Christy and I are going to go back. We reached out to them this morning, like, hey, we want to come out. We want to see how it's going. We want to know if you're happy, all those good things. So I'm not a one and done, and we just want to continue because our partners sign up for 3-year deals. And although I love to get that sale at the beginning, I love even more when they renew. And that's a testament. Our renewal rate is really, really great. I'm really proud of that. So I think it's just boils down to service and how we treat our partners. And as you know, the sports world is small. You don't stick around here this long with as many teams as we have if you're not doing that. Now,
Absolutely.
it's not all perfect, okay? Like, it's not all perfect. There are things that go wrong, but we actually, when that happens, we own it right away. I mean, you have to, and just you gotta continue to deliver, honesty, integrity, and service at all times.
Yeah. Well, clearly you're doing that. I like the story of you actually showing up in person at the team. How
Yes.
often do you do that?
More now. I would say we're on the road probably a week to 10 days a month. And actually, that's what I love to do. Like, I love to do that. We're going to go to New York next week. We're going for the Sports Business Journal Tech Week. We'll meet with the NFL. We've got Yankees. Like, New York's a big market for us. So those bigger markets, I go quite a bit.
That's amazing. I have so much that I want to ask you, and I have to pick and choose what I want to ask. But how many other women are in the tech solution space in and around the sports business, do you think? Like 3?
Maybe. I don't even know who they are.
Priya from Yinscam,
Yes.
who comes to
Yeah.
mind?
And I don't know her, and I've always wanted to meet her. But yes, she does come to mind. I don't know. I'm sure you know. I don't know.
I think it's just that's the one that comes to mind, and that's why I said in the beginning I've been wanting to hear your story for so long because it's amazing from the outside looking in what you've accomplished. It truly is. As someone who has worked in the sports business, who knows how it works, who knows what the ratios are, you just have sort of like gone straight through it, and it seems like not with ease, but with good strategy, excellent service, and total poise.
Good people. Yeah, really
Yeah.
good people. I mean, the key for me, what really helped at the beginning was I hired people that worked at teams. And that was the secret sauce at the beginning for sure. I see a lot of people trying to get into sports and not understanding that part. I just hired a guy that used to work at NASCAR, and it's just, I know he's got a whole different network, and then Chris has got a whole different network. I've got another guy, Doug Holtzman, who came from the MLB. He's got a different network. So surrounding myself with those people, it's not just me. It's like everyone around me too. So I can't take full credit.
It's smart though. I mean, take
I
credit
just hired right now.
like you're
Yeah.
making smart choices. Even just
Yes.
saying, I'm diversifying the people that I bring in by their experience and their network. Like every
Right.
little thing is it's smart decision making.
Yeah.
You mentioned in the list of items when, I kind of asked the question, what is your advice for women? What I did is I broke that down. I picked 2 things.
Okay.
But on the same tangent of the idea of reputation, you talked about prioritizing your curb appeal as a woman in any business, right? In the sports business. Can you talk a little bit about, and you do an amazing job I live on LinkedIn a lot. It's kind of one of the bases of what I do in my work, but you're actually one of the, it's sort of rare to see for me a woman who is very well positioned on a platform like LinkedIn, not only being well positioned, but active. And so I wanted to hear from you about your mindset in the idea of prioritizing your external profile, or as you put it, your curb appeal.
I don't think there's anything more important, honestly. And it's not even just as a CEO, but it's just across the board. I strongly believe in that. A little bit sometimes cringy, putting yourself out there, as we all know. But I can't tell you how many times, almost with every post, it will be a new request for a podcast. It'll be a different article. It'll be a speaking engagement. And that it's so rewarding, because a lot of times it's for entrepreneur initiatives, it's for women initiatives. I mean, obviously those are my favorite. But I just think it's absolutely critical. It's a no, absolutely have to do it. My daughter, my kids, LinkedIn, like when they were in high school, that's the number one thing. For me though, you have to be able to be super concise, have a great, it's like your headshot, it's your keeping it up to date, because that's like the first place that I go to look with whoever I'm going to meet with. And as you know, you do too. So the fact that you go on LinkedIn sometimes and you see people with outdated pictures and outdated LinkedIns, it just boggles my mind. So I subscribe to the thoughts of that a company like mine has to have a CEO with the brand, because there are so many tech companies out there that I'm trying to differentiate myself, that we're more than just a tech company. We're more than just a software company. We're real people. And so I've tried to make that really prevalent in my world. It's interesting because when I do different kind of posts, if I do like a real techie post, my engagement will be okay. When I do a post about my girlfriends being my board of directors, or something super personal, or like, I remember I wrote a post about that I was not a great student in high school, and the amount of people that I had reach out to me and all that, a little bit more vulnerable, a little bit more personal, those are the posts that do the best. And so I feel a little bit bad because I don't do more tech posts and talk more about my product, but I don't think that that's what people want from me. And I mean, it's obvious because like the likes go way down when I'm like, the DigiDeck is such a great product and you should use it for your sales team. But it's like, nobody cares. I was a C student. I sucked at school.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I got it. So sometimes I wonder if I'm too personal on LinkedIn. It hasn't hurt me yet. So I think I'm going to continue. And with my kids, I'm just trying to instill that, just as far as the LinkedIn profiles and how important they are.
Another smart decision.
Yeah. Trying.
I wouldn't know about you if it weren't for LinkedIn. That's just case in point, right? I was able to find you, follow your story, and I've been following your story for years now. And because I can follow you on LinkedIn, I get notified when you post, and
Oh, I love
all
that.
those things. And I think this is crazy, right? So in my working with women CEOs now in all of business, I was looking at the Inc. 500. It's women-owned startups, I think. Okay. I think of the 500 that I've looked at so far, as I go down the list of these women, I don't know, maybe two of them have ever published like an article, or, I mean,
Dang.
so what I want to say is you're doing something. I don't know how you knew how to do it. I don't know why you decided to do it. I don't know if you just hired somebody really smart or it was your idea,
Oh, I do
but
it myself.
yeah. And it's like, okay, there's so much genius in that, because people think, and you said it, like it's a little cringy and it could be like a little overwhelming to say, I'm going to put something out there that's actually me. But uh, people love that stuff, and people want to know you, right? And not only do they want to know you, but if they're going to make a decision that involves you or your business, you're giving them stuff that makes you human, and your brand is speaking for itself before they even speak to you, right? So I think there's so much power in putting an investment of time in that, and I love that you're doing that, and I just, good job.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It does take work. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's like when I push the edit or the post button, sometimes I'm like, oh, I can't believe I'm going to do it, but it hasn't hurt me yet. And it's actually helped our business so much. And so I'm going to continue to do it. And I have a lot of women working here too, trying to teach them that too.
Yeah. That's
Men
amazing.
and women, but yeah.
So you also, speaking of reputation, were in 2018 Forbes list of the 30 most powerful women in sports. That's a really big deal. And you've won other awards as well. And I wanted to ask you how the awards, because people, this comes up a lot with powerful women. I don't need recognition. I'm good, right? I don't need to be on that list. My work speaks for itself. This is the feedback that I hear sometimes. So I wanted to ask you, what have those awards, those recognitions, the Forbes list, things like that, what kind of impact have they had on the business?
Tremendous. I mean, it's everything. It's everything. And that's why I do care about the awards, because it helps our business so much. Sports business, so the two favorite awards was obviously the Forbes one. That was a game changer for the company. In sports, and you know this one, the Game Changer Award from Sports Business Journal, that was a game changer for us. So those are the two that were really important for our business. There was one, it's not an award, but there was one article, it's hanging on my wall right here on Inc. magazine. It's probably my favorite article that was ever written about the company and myself. And the headline was, "This entrepreneur hated PowerPoint, so she invented her own presentation software." And it came out June 15th, 2020, right after COVID started. And I am telling you that we had to set up, people had to come in, because we had so many reach out and requests for information that we had to set up a war room to be able to handle this. We weren't even supposed to be coming into the office. We were literally knocking on the back door like a speakeasy and being like, okay, I need some people in here because we can't handle what's going on. And so the awards are so critical. Articles are so important for a small business. We're not really that small anymore, but just to continue to grow is so, so helpful. Podcasts, like what you guys are doing, everything, all of this, helping me right now create content is invaluable, so thank you.
You get it.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
You're just telling them everything that
Yeah.
I tell them. And I
Yeah.
love it. I love hearing it from someone who is in your position, has done what you've done, and understands the power of it, really, and can really
Right.
speak to what, the impact and, the idea of humility. And I want to be
Right.
humble. And well, it's not about humility, right?
Yeah.
It's about your business.
Right.
And to hear you say that it has a tremendous impact that's what I want to hear. That's
Yeah.
the point, right? We're not doing,
Why you put yourself out there, it's why you do all these things,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. What are you doing? Okay. So before we wrap up, I wanted to ask, what's coming for, you talked about you're making a decision around the branding and expanding, but is there anything else you wanted to mention that is coming down the pike for either you as, a person or for your business?
I would say those are both kind of the same thing for me. My life is my business. And so I would say nothing of major announcement, but just continuing on that journey is really important, and picking the right journey right now. Like I said, we're at a crossroads as far as what journey we're going to take. We know that the markets haven't been great. Interest rates are terrible. The M&A market has been almost non-existent. And we have typically been a company that's we're at the intersection of tech and sports. So we're in a really dynamic, cool industry for M&A and PE firms. And so we will probably start to entertain more of those conversations probably at the end of 24. Because we do get a lot of interest, but obviously I've not wanted to do anything. So I'm not saying I'm selling, but I'm saying that, we're getting this company to a really great place to kind of potentially bring it to the next level with some other, whether it's a PE firm, growth equity, whatever it is, we're thinking about those things.
I love it. And I want to just recap quickly here what I take away from this interview, which is so many things. And once again, thank you. I really can't thank you enough for taking the time to share all of this amazing information about you and your business. When we talk about the big wins women make to the big moves,
Yeah.
when we talk about the big moves women make to win in business, it's very clear to me now with you. you made a decision to go all in, and it wasn't after the first sale. It was after you saw the gap in the market and you decided, I'm going to build it myself. I'm not going to be a service provider. I'm going to build it myself. So you became the challenger to PowerPoint in the sports industry, and your business is thriving. You've talked about all the new clients that you've brought on. The other things that I wrote down is you are a company that has stayed ahead of the curve. So your timing was good. The pandemic, which forced everyone to digital, was beneficial to your company. But it's very clear to me that you're good with strategy, like making really smart strategic decisions on behalf of both the business and yourself as like the front of the business. And so I just wanted to kind of say, these are the themes that were very clear to me when we talked, as we've talked. And I am really excited to see what is to come with your company in the next few years. So once again, thank you.
Thank you. I
And
really enjoyed talking to you.
yeah, and good luck with everything. And thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you, Amy.